No pressure.
No pressure.
Good afternoon. Thanks everybody for coming. It's such a huge topic, and we really want to engage with everybody in this room as we see real benefit from hearing what you've got to say and answering some of your questions. So we've only got a short presentation covering what I see as three of the biggest challenges. The pandemic has massively changed the way that we occupy and use buildings. To some extent, this is just an acceleration of a growing trend. However, this graph is a clear indication of just how much the offices that we use day in, day out have changed. And I'm sure many people in this room will recognise this. Wednesday's the busiest day, closely followed by Tuesday and Thursday, with Monday 23% lower than Wednesday and Friday 41% lower. This is taken from September 2022, with even bigger swings during the summer as people take long weekends. Obviously, this represents a big challenge from a sustainability perspective because we've got buildings that are only up to 50% occupied on some days. So, what are the solutions? No, it's not to mandate people being in the office 5 days a week. It's just not going to work. People have really enjoyed the flexibility that they've been given through the evolving working pattern. And there are loads of other benefits, things like well-being, enhanced employer engagement, work-life balance, and the ability to manage family and life admin tasks. No, we need to embrace the change. We need to adapt the workplaces that we've got, creating a flexible work environment with breakout spaces containing additional hot desks and collaboration spaces. We need to create spaces that people want to come and work in, and some interesting statistics here on people that actually enjoy working in our offices. They're 33% more engaged, they're 30% more connected to the culture of the business, they're 9% more productive, and 20% less likely to leave the business. And this is exactly what we're doing here at Bruntwood, and we've been doing that for many years. This space here is a communal space for everybody in the building to come and use, and we've got many more buildings like this, particularly in our Pioneer brand. But most importantly, from an energy perspective, we need to create smart buildings, buildings that adapt to changes in occupancy, that give the ability for end users to change the settings based on their own personal preferences. We're developing a smart building initiative across our portfolio and have now fitted a number of buildings with smart technology with a wider rollout planned. Employers should also think about promoting set days in the office, particularly for team collaboration. Think about how they can incentivise people to be in the office on those less busy days. So free exercise classes, workshops, social activity, free lunches maybe. And employers can make those changes today. Businesses that don't do this, they won't succeed. And an interesting statistic here from the Times that said only 8% of people actually intend on returning to the office full time. The second challenge is carbon emissions and the energy crisis. The built environment represents 40% of the UK's carbon footprint, and these two graphs show the challenge that we've got for showing a typical new build office and a ultra low energy office. As can be seen, there's a massive energy reduction on the operational energy, which is the day-to-day electricity that we use, with the remaining energy associated with the embodied carbon, which is the physical construction materials to build, maintain and refurbish those spaces. Reducing embodied carbon is much more challenging, primarily due to the fossil fuels used for raw material extraction and manufacturing processes. Steel and concrete being two of the biggest contributors here. But again, there are solutions out there, and if we can use structural timber, there's a huge opportunity. And that's exactly what we're doing at Evo. We've designed a mass timber building that has reduced emissions by 87%, which is the equivalent of 9,000 tonnes of CO2 compared to a typical building. To support the significant reduction in emissions, there are agreed transitional targets for both embodied, i.e. the construction, and operational, i.e. electricity and gas, that we can see in this table. Obviously, it's not just about new buildings, as Andy mentioned. As it's estimated that 80% of buildings that exist today will still be here in 2050. So what are the solutions? We need to start to build to net zero standards now. The idea that we're building buildings today that won't be fit for future by 2050 is absolutely crazy. We need a deep retrofit programme for our existing buildings, particularly focusing on building fabric and removal of gas boilers. And policy can drive a big change here, both locally and nationally. And I think there's a big opportunity for Manchester to lead the way. There's a clear need for transparent data and reporting. Historic certification schemes like DECs, EPCs, BREEAM, they just don't really work. I'd like to see the Australian scheme, Neighbours, much more widely adopted, as I believe it will see a significant shift in the way that in the market. It's got a proven track record in Australia, supporting reducing energy consumption and supporting lettings on the best performing buildings. Neighbours looks at actual energy consumption of a building, but critically excludes end user loads such as IT and lighting, which are outside the landlord or developer's control. We're also engaged with the net zero carbon building standard that should give us a platform to truly compare new buildings against each other. Most people hopefully know that Manchester's got a carbon neutral target by 2038. There's an agreed carbon budget, but unfortunately, our current trajectory, we will have exhausted our carbon emissions by 2024. The key point is that we need action now. I'm wondering whether the energy crisis can be the thing that shifts the dial on net zero. Interesting how much money people can save by being in the office. The Times recently released an article saying that consumers can save up to £28 per week by using their employers' facilities like heating, charging phones and laptops, and showering at the office. The final challenge, very much aligned with Andy's comments, is commuting and business travel. You can see here the carbon emissions for different modes of transport. Bottom of the list, cars. The middle section is dominated by public transport, well, middle and top, with the top two active travel, cycling and walking. 17% of the UK emissions are from passenger vehicles. EVs are not the solution. We need to get people out of their cars and onto public transport or using active travel. Not only is active travel have wider health and well-being benefits, but we need to make sure that they're safe and pleasurable for end users. Wouldn't it be great if Manchester could lead the way on active travel? I think it's important to also think about cycle and shower facilities in the places that we work, and that's very much one of the things that Bruntwood are focusing on as part of our portfolio plan. The other thing that businesses can do is to complete an employee travel audit to understand the current position, introduce travel policy and set targets for reduction. Encourage virtual meetings. Many of the meetings that I would have personally attended previously I now attend virtually, so enabling that through good technology and virtual meeting rooms in the office. And how can we incentivise public transport, linking in with those days where the offices are less busy. Maybe we could introduce something like free travel Fridays. Andy, this isn't... hang on. This isn't necessarily something that GMCA would need to fund. You know, if businesses want people back in the offices, maybe they can fund in some way in partnership with GMCA. Thanks very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it and look forward to hearing from you guys at the end of the session.